The Really Real Show with Isaiah Stanback.
All right. What's up, y'all? This is Isaiah Stanback, and this is the Really Real Show with Isaiah Stanback. This is the first episode, so y'all bear with me. We're gonna get this thing going. First topic we're gonna be speaking on today, y'all. All right, it's gonna be culture and the role it plays in sports and business. Yeah, we're gonna get a little deep today. So one more time, culture and the role that it plays in sports and business. For those that don't know, again, I'm Isaiah Stanback, and I'm born and raised in Seattle, Washington. My whole life has pretty much been, totally surrounded around sports. Grew up in the hood in Central District of Seattle. Grew up with my mother and my father were both in my life. However, they separated when I was younger. So I grew up with an older brother, 10 years older than me. My sister is 9 years older than me. And my mom, who was, I guess, a single parent, even though I went to my father's house every other weekend. She was essentially a single parent. And I learned culture at an early age because she was team no excuse. Mom just made it happen. She always figured out a way to make things happen. She had 3 kids, and she had to find a way to get food on the table. We was broke. We bootleg things. She, Beanie Weenies was a meal. Whatever it is, she found a way. And I found out at a young age exactly what it meant, what it meant to have a grind, right? To what it really meant to have to put in work and to find a resolution, to find a way, and that became the culture. That really kind of was the foundation for who I am now today. So let's go ahead and talk on culture. What is culture? What is culture? So culture, to me at least, is a particular society that has a set of beliefs and ways of life. All right, run it back one more time. A particular society that has a set of beliefs and a way of life. And I feel like every individual on this earth has some form of culture in them. Whatever that is, that may vary from individual to individual. That might vary from business. That might vary from sport and organization. But a culture is the premise of who you are. And we're going to get into it a little bit later on in terms of, can you separate culture and character? I think not. So let's go ahead and touch on the first question. Why is culture important? Why is culture important? From my perspective, culture is very important because it establishes a level of expectation. And I feel like you're lost and unguided without some kind of culture. Let me give you an example. In my household, right, when I was growing up, mom took care of business. My job my responsibilities was to make sure that all the chores were taken care of at the house, right? That was the culture. If I didn't take care of business when she came back to the house, I was getting my butt whooped. That's what it was, all right? That was my level of expectation that she set forth. That was the society that we was in, and that was my responsibility. So in terms, that was the culture. Now in turn, right? Now I'm grown. I have the same thing. Right, I take care of business. My wife takes care of what she takes care of. I take care of what I'm supposed to do. The kids have their responsibilities. It's a culture that's created in terms of responsibility, in terms of not depending on somebody else, and not making an excuse for things not getting done. Right, so that's what I grew up in. That's the environment I was in. I grew up, like I mentioned, I grew up in the hood. So you either were a product of your environment in terms of you're going to be on the street. You're going to be slinging drugs. You're going to be getting drunk. You're going to be getting in fights. You're going to be going to prison, getting murdered. That was the society that you could have chose to be a part of, or you had an opportunity to kind of create yourself and create your own, and be an individual. And a big part of culture is remaining an individual, but adapting parts of that society. So in terms of just double back, why is it important? It is, like I said, it establishes a level of expectation, and it's simply you're unguided unless you have that foundation. That is it. You have to start somewhere. Examples. All right. Well, let me give you guys some examples of sports franchises with great culture. All right. Obviously, you guys know my background. If you guys don't know, I played 6 years pro NFL. Was blessed to be with some really great organizations such as the Patriots, the Dallas Cowboys, Seahawks, the Giants, and then I finished up with Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'll give you guys a little bit of example in terms of my perception of culture, whether it was good or bad. That's why it's the Really Real show, because we're going to keep it real on here. Best organization that I could tell you guys in terms of culture, I would have to say the New England Patriots. New England Patriots, everybody knows the Patriots, and they understand one thing about their culture, and it's a very selfless culture. I started off my career with the Dallas Cowboys. I was drafted back in 2007, fourth round pick. Coming off injury, a catastrophic injury that most people deem that you really can't recover from. So I had to battle a lot of adversity. And again, because of the culture and the society in which I came from, that was expected. It wasn't, I didn't need a pat on the back for, oh man, yeah, you got back. No, that was expected of me because, again, going back to how I grew up, you make a way. So when I got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, it was a new experience for me. Totally new experience for me. I didn't understand it. Coming from college was one thing, but going into the league, I had no sense of what the culture was going to be in a professional setting. So when I got there, obviously Dallas Cowboys, everything's about marketing. Big money, big money. You got the star everywhere. Mr. Jerry Jones all over the place and getting his money. That's what he does, right? So that is the culture. That's the society that's created in the Dallas area, right? Based around football and sports. The culture is money. The culture is their history of winning. I felt that my experience with the Cowboys, I was blessed to be here. I was blessed to be in Dallas. I still reside in Dallas. I love the city. But I felt like the culture was more around talking about the team and the glamour that comes with the team versus winning in the program. I know I'm going to get scolded by a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans. I'm not knocking anybody. I love the Cowboys. I love the opportunities that Mr. Jones and the family gave me. But I'm here to keep it 100 with you guys. The culture that I had, even my first year, we went 13-3. So we balled out. We had a great team. He did a great job of putting together a great talented team. I'm not sure how we stayed under the salary cap, but somehow we did. But the culture wasn't. I didn't feel like it was winning. I felt like it was more important what you had. It was more important what you were driving. It was more important what jewelry you showed up with. It was more important what commercial we're shooting today. What celebrity is showing up to practice. What company is coming. Let's make sure we go shake hands. I felt like that was more, and that's a part of business. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like that was deemed more important than winning, even though winning was talked about on a consistent basis. Switch gears. When I left Dallas, I went straight to New England. So you guys want to talk about flipping the script? That was a total 180. I went from a organization that was all about the flash to an organization that didn't care what you were driving. They didn't care what you wore. All they cared about was that you were a selfless individual, that you were smart, and that you were all about the team. That's all they cared about. They wanted to win ball games. And I had a work ethic that came from way before I got to the league, but I had some great examples of what I consider to be hard work. I had guys like Terrell Owens, Patrick Creighton, Aaron Glenn, and Terrence Newman. We had a ton of guys that I could really just pick information from and just watch what they deemed, what was their culture, what was their individual character. And when I got to New England, I carried that along with me. So when I remember my first day, I got my playbook, and then I was like, okay, showed up next day at practice. I'm gonna get there early because that's who I am, and I'm gonna show them who I am. And I get there, and I think got there like 5:30 that morning, and I'm thinking I'm about to be the first one in the building, and guys are already having meetings with coaches. And I remember walking in the building, being like, dang, well, I'm not getting no cool points today. So I look to my right, and there's two guys sitting there. And I never forget it. He's an all-pro every year. Matthew Slater was sitting there, and he's meeting with the special teams coach. And, I walk down the hallway a little bit further, going to the locker room, and you look over to the left in another meeting room, and there's another group of guys meeting. And I'm like, crap, these guys don't play around. And that was my first exposure to the New England Patriots. And a lot of times your perception is based upon that first interaction, that first encounter that you have, and that's what it was. What I thought was hard work, what I deemed as a culture that I was bringing to the organization of hard work, dedication, loyalty, all those things, they leveled up. So now they raised my level of expectation, not only for myself, but now let me see, I need to learn their culture, because I thought I knew hard work. Now I have to raise my level and see what is hard work, because that's what I was doing wasn't it. And every single day, I had opportunity. I went out there as a quarterback, so I had opportunity to obviously share the room with a guy named Tom Brady. Y'all may know him. But I had opportunity to share the room with him, but I was also doing receiver, so I had opportunity to share the room with a guy, Wes Welker, Randy Moss. So by this time in my career, I've been with Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Tom Brady, but I'm going back and forth to all these great minds. And then also they have this guy named Bill Belichick out there, which is crazy. And to watch the culture of success that he's created, and what it really takes to get to that platform that he's on, that pedestal that him and Tom Brady will forever be on. It was earth-shattering to me, because these guys put in hours upon hours upon hours, and that was the culture they created. And because it was the culture they created, that was the expectancy that they had of every individual that came into that organization. And if you didn't have that kind of work ethic, if you didn't have that drive, if you didn't adapt that as now you're part of your culture, then you were kind of, I don't want to say that you were outed, but you just didn't fit. You didn't fit the script. And that wasn't an issue for me, but I just remember spending countless hours studying, and as we got to games, one of my stories that I like to bring up is, I'm sitting there. We have a night game. We have a 7 p.m. night game on Sunday night. I don't remember what channel it was on, Fox or something, but we're sitting there, and we have the coach asked Tom what time he wanted to meet to go over the script. And the script, in case you guys don't know, is a sheet of paper that has like 300 plays on it. And that's the plays that the coaches had cut down. They got it down to 300 plays that they wanted to kind of go over and have to be able to call that day. So we needed to go over the script for the game. And in TB12, I'm thinking, okay, we got a 7 p.m. game. We can wake up, sleep in. We're used to get up around 5 or something, 6. Let's go, probably meet at 9. No, TB12 was like, we're meeting at 6. And I remember like, huh? We don't play till that night. Of course, that was in my head. But we met at 6 a.m. and we sat there, and TB12 sat there and crossed his legs and went play by play, reading the play, reading the coverages, reading his progressions based upon those coverages, and we did that for all 300 plus plays. And I remember sitting there looking at him, and I'm trying not to draw too much attention, but in my head, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But in the same token, I'm thinking this is ridiculous. I'm like, this is why the culture is what it is here in New England. This is the expectancy level. I'm not sure if he had that drive and that work ethic prior to Coach Belichick, or whether they figured it out together. I don't know. I didn't know them at that point in time, but what I did know was that it was important to him to be the hardest working, hardest studying individual on that team, and be honest with you, in the world. So I was able to sit there and learn and adapt this new culture of, this is what it means to work. This is work ethic. This is now your new standard. And it really changed my perception of hard work from that day on. That's one story. Coach Belichick, I remember walking out one night after staying late watching film, and I walked past Coach Belichick. His room, his office is right by the door that we came in. And I glanced. I was nosy. I ain't gonna lie. I glanced into his office, and I saw a cot. And I'm like, this dude, why is there a cot in Coach's office? And the next day I asked dudes, I'm like, dude, y'all know Coach got blankets and pillows and stuff in there, and a little cot, like a little twin bed in there? They're like, yeah, nah, Coach sleeps here. I'm like, no, that's not That's not possible. They're like, nah, coach sleeps here. And sometimes he calls like 12 a.m., like midnight meetings with some of his guys his young guys on defense that he wants to, raise up as leaders on that side of the ball. And I'm like, man, this dude lives the game, but again, going back to culture, that's what it is out there. So when you guys are seeing, how's New England keep doing this? Tom Brady's 40 years old and they don't have all the talent all these other teams have. That's what it is. That's the culture out there. The New York Giants, another great team that has great culture. They're from the top down, from the leadership. They have two owners, and from the top down, they make sure that everybody is deemed professional. They make sure that everybody has what they need. They follow up on health checks throughout the year, and they check on families. They genuinely care about each individual that goes through that organization, and it shows in the steps that they take. And so when you start looking at some of these organizations, why the guys choose certain organizations to go play for versus others, the money wasn't as good. They look at culture. They really do look at culture. Seattle Seahawks, when I went out there, it's a culture of competition. That's what Coach Carroll has brought. That's what he brought from USC. That culture that he has is fun, is high energy, and he's the oldest coach in the league, but he has the highest energy, and it's because of the culture that he's created why guys want to go out there and play. It's about one thing: competition. So when you're looking around, all these places have culture, and you're going to make your decisions based upon those things. We talk about different businesses where they have great culture. You talk about Netflix, Solar City. Netflix takes care of their employees. If you look them up right now, they're one of the funnest places to work for because they take care of their employees. Solar City, they're known for being innovative, right? So all these different companies, as you're looking, if you guys have your own companies, you really need to make sure that you guys set in stone what you want to be known for, because that's essentially the culture, that's your reputation, that's what people are going to base it off of. They're going to base it off your culture. What effect does culture have over an individual coming into a team or organization? Just double backed on that. When I had opportunities to choose the teams that I was going to go play for, it was all based upon what I was going to be walking into. Did I want to be a part of what that coach stood for? Did my character align with that organization? Do they have a great reputation for taking care of their players? Do they, how are their players deemed? What are their players set up for after ball, right? So there's a whole lot of things that really play a part in it, but it always boils down to the same thing, and that's the culture that they've created. It's hard to change culture. It's very hard to change culture. So as we're now looking at all these coaching changes, all these new coaches that are being hired, these guys have tough jobs. They are taking players that were brought on under one form of somebody else's culture that they've developed, and now they're trying to adopt these same guys and develop them and have them adapt and adopt their ways and their visions and their society and their beliefs, and it's hard. So when you look at why are guys struggling, how come they can't get wins in the first year? Because it takes a lot longer to get everybody to change their mindset to believe in what you're pitching them. Right? It takes a long time. We're talking about grown men now that are set in their ways. So if guys have decided that they're not trying to be on board with that, then they're not going to do it. So we have to make sure that we're taking that in consideration and giving guys opportunities when we say, hey, let them get their culture instilled. Let them work on these guys. Let them get some of their guys in so that they can essentially flourish and grow. Does culture affect your decision making? Yes. When in terms of business, oh yes. What about schools? Does it affect you when you're picking schools? Is it just a degree, or does a culture at the school matter? I can tell you when I was coming out of high school, and I was choosing my colleges, I narrowed my decision down to University of Washington, Arizona State, and USC. I went on all the visits. I went on my visits to all those universities. My experience at USC, I felt like it was fake. Call it how it is. Keep it really real. It was fake. My interaction with the staff there, I did not deem it as being genuine. So as I was making my decision, I was like, I don't want to be a part of a culture where I don't feel like somebody's going to be 100 with me. Now that was my perception. That's all I can go off because I wasn't in that environment long enough to really have a, I guess, to have a full grasp and understanding of their culture, but it was enough. And it was apparent enough to me, it was apparent to them, to the individuals that I brought on that trip to me, that culture wasn't something that fit who I was and who I was at my core. Arizona State. At the time, it was Coach Dirk Cutter. He was the, now going to be the head coach, and he wanted me to come in and be the starting quarterback. And boom, all that stuff was all going. And he needed time. He needed time to instill his beliefs. He needed time to change that society. He needed time to get things going. But my experience with the current guys that he had on his team, that culture didn't fit me again. Again, it didn't fit me. And I understood that that's not him. It's not his fault. But at the same time, I was going to be exposing myself and implanting myself into this culture that didn't sit well with me. And I went to a party they were hosting me, and I went to a house party, and there were some things that were going on at the house party that definitely didn't align with who I was. And one of my hosts at the time had gotten drunk, and he was out, and as we're walking out of the house party, these guys started circling the block with their windows low, and based upon my background, he was about to get jumped. So me being a recruit, I don't know this guy. I don't know the Joker, so I'm not fighting for him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell your teammates, and I'm going to allow your teammates to go ahead and ride with you. And when I informed his teammates that, hey, you guys might want to keep an eye out on him, they literally turned their back on him and said, he always does that. And I was like, wow. And if that's your natural reaction, this is honest truth. That's why I decided to not go. That's why I decided to not go to Arizona State University, because of the players that were there and what I saw is the time it was going to take to turn those people's beliefs, to turn their hearts in the right direction. But at that time, that didn't align with me. If you don't have my back off the field, you definitely don't have my back on the field, and I didn't want to be a part of that culture. So that's why I decided not to go there. University of Washington, flip the script. I ended up signing with the University of Washington. Same scenario at a house party. I don't know why everybody took me to a house party. I don't drink or smoke, so it was the wrong thing to do. But was at a house party. One of the current players got drunk. One of the current players got drunk. I'm talking about drunk. He's peeing in the fireplace and all kinds of stuff. It's bad. And I'm looking like, oh my goodness, this is college. And it got to the point where he was belligerent and he was getting a little wild, right? He was getting a little wild. Very similar situation as my Arizona State trip, right? But instead, this time, all the football players grabbed him, took him, threw him in a truck, took him home, dropped him off, and came back to the party. And that alone was enough for me to say, this is where I wanted to be. Because that, no matter how intoxicated guys were, right, their core values was to take care of their own. And that's what I wanted to be a part of. That's a culture that I wanted to be involved with. So it definitely affects your decisions in terms of schools, jobs, church, right? Some churches are known for being flashy. Let's call it how it is. Some churches are known for always having handouts or just asking for money. And then you have the churches like the church I'm a part of now, One Community Church here in Louisville and Plano, in Texas. It's all about service, and it's very selfless. Everybody is serving. Everybody is putting in their part. And nobody's asking for anything. The churches isn't asking for handouts. The church is just asking for your time and your commitment and your involvement. And that I can get down with. That's a culture that I want to be a part of, because guess what? Everybody's grinding. Everybody's putting in work. So that's it definitely affects all those things. So when you're making your decisions, I would be interested to know who doesn't agree with me in regards to decision making and culture. Let me see here. Give real life collegiate experiences and decisions. Those I just touched base on that. Real life professional experience with culture. In the NFL, it's tricky. It's very tricky. The NFL, it can be very dirty in terms of how guys get treated, and that word gets out. That word really gets out, and the organizations that aren't treating people well, they typically don't get the free agent signings that other organizations get. And it takes time. It takes time. It takes loyalty. It takes consistency of players being treated the right way, not only when it comes to contracts, but also in terms of their staff that they have around them, their support systems. What other resources do you have for me? Are you helping me with outside opportunities? Are you setting me up for success? Are you presenting me to the best way possible to the media? Are you making sure that I have the best training staff? There's so many parts and elements of organizations in terms of professional ball, and that word really gets out. So when guys have opportunity to sign as free agents, it's not just about the money. So I know it's hard for fans, for all you fans out there. It's hard for y'all to understand, but there's a lot of things internally that these organizations need to be doing a lot better to acquire some of these free agents that y'all want so dearly. How do you think that the culture affects organizations and their success? Do you feel like culture affects companies and their success? I mean, again, we could turn around and look at the Cowboys. Since we're here in D-Town, Cowboys haven't won a championship in a long time. A long time. I played for them during that window where they haven't won a championship as well. But I would say, and now they're looking into, coaching changes, Coach Garrett, and I think they're deciding that they're not going to fire him and all those things. And I think the biggest decision that Jerry, the reason why Jerry Jones is deciding to stick with Coach Garrett is because of the culture that he's created, and he knows how much time it's going to take to change the culture to hand it over to another coach and get him to now build these other guys up and get them to buy in to what he's pitching, especially when you're dealing with quarterback and young quarterback and leadership. So most definitely, it has an effect over success because of the amount of time it takes to build these things up. So for sure. Who starts the culture? That's a good question. Who starts the culture? I already gave you guys the example of my mom and how that kind of came to me. My dad has hard work ethic. My siblings, their work ethic is out of this world. So if you're asking me, I spent most of my time obviously with my mother. So that's kind of who I had as that what's the best term to utilize? I don't know, she was a pinnacle to me. So I still have my father. Don't get me wrong, my father is a great example, but my mom was there every day with me. So I saw perseverance. I saw hard work. I saw grind. So that again was my culture. We're looking at some of these different businesses, and you look at the top, some of these top businesses, who's their leadership? Who's their leadership? Where is that coming from? How is that? You look at Tesla. Let's look at a company like Tesla, Elon Musk. Some people say, "Oh, he's not a good leader," and then you look at it on the other end. Well, why is it that he's leading the world on underground transportation, in space, and underground? He's a leader, and he's created a culture of success, but he does it in a lot riskier fashion than others would do it. But again, that's him. That's him. Culture doesn't have to be what everybody else, your culture doesn't have to be along the same plane as everybody else. So when you're being innovative, when you're being a risk taker, that's you. That's you. And other people are going to adapt that, and they're going to understand that's who you are. And again, that becomes a part of who you are as a company. And I think that's important. I think it's very important to be an individual in that regard. In terms of raising kids, I touched base with my mom, and now I'm a father. I'm a father of three. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Nadia. I have a 4-year-old twins, Sky and Isaac. And yes, I'm fighting every day. My wife Natalie, we go back and forth in terms of how she was brought up, how I was brought up, and try to come together and figure out what's going to be the culture of our family now. She came up totally different than I grew up. She grew up sitting at the table and everybody's talking about their day. I grew up, hey, grab a doggone TV tray or just sit on the couch and figure out life. She grew up talking about everything. I grew up internalizing everything because all my siblings were gone. My mom was at work, right? So you have all these different things that you're really trying to put together, and it's kind of cool because it's like you have an opportunity to create something that's going to be handed down at some other point. I have three kids. What we're instilling in them, in an environment and culture in which we're creating for them, they're going to in turn decide whether or not they want to adopt that later on in life when they get to make decisions. They have no choice right now. But later on in life, they're going to decide, hey, I like this, right? Or I didn't like this. You know, I know one part of the culture that we're creating for them is independency, being able to make decisions on your own, not being easily influenced by other people, standing firm, being steadfast in who you are and your faith, and who you are as an individual, knowing right from wrong, black and white, making decisions and standing firm with them, accountability, all these things, all these characteristic traits, characteristic traits really end up being key elements to the culture that we're creating, and that you're most likely going to be creating with your kids, or even if whether you're coaching. You know, as I'm coaching now, I'm giving them what I have in me. Right, I'm giving them what I have in me, and that's hard work, dedication. Hashtag team no excuses. Right, you make it happen. If you want it, you go get it. Nothing's, you know, I like, you know, some people say nothing's given in this world. Unfortunately, some stuff is given in this world, but those individuals don't have the work ethic that people that are really finding the way and making their own path have. So it's different. It's different. So continue to control your outcome with that. And the last thing is culture versus character. Can you separate the two? And I don't think that you can. I really don't think that you can, because my character dictates the culture that I'm creating, or the culture that I'm in. The organizations I played for brought me into those organizations because of my character, because they felt like I would be a good fit for their team. And not even just a physical aspect. What type of person am I bringing into my locker room? You know, and in terms of business, which that is business as well. But in terms of businesses, who are you going to be talking to? Do I want you to be are you going to be a great representation or a great extension of me? As I'm now hiring people, do they represent what I represent? Right? You know, they don't have to do everything that I do. We don't have to have the same backgrounds, but at their core, what are their values? You know, are they genuine? Are they confident? You know, are they steadfast? Do they just do they have great energy? Are they genuinely good people? You know, you can't fake culture. You can't do it. If you do, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. You know, so when we talk about culture, character and culture go hand in hand. And no matter what you're a part of, no matter what you're building, I would take a hard look at exactly what that is and what you want it to be, and decide exactly, is that something that you want to be a part of? And the moment that you start putting finances over character and culture, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. So make sure you guys take a real look at that, a deep look into yourself, and figure out exactly where you're at in your life. Even if you're not where you want to be, if you can sit down and look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, my character is intact, the environment in which I'm putting myself into correlates with who I am and my core values, then you're going to eventually be where you want to be at. And you can rest sound and confident, knowing that you're in line with who you are as an individual, and that you're not faking the funk. So appreciate y'all. This is again, really real show with myself, Isaiah Stanback. This is episode 1. Y'all stick with us. We're gonna keep this thing rolling. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure that you guys send in your questions, topics that you guys want me to cover, and we'll make sure that we address those things, and that we can answer all those questions, and maybe even bring up your topic that you guys send in going forward. Talk to y'all soon.